Yo, what's good, YouTube? What's good? It's Stormybman. And I am back. That's right, I am back. Welcome to another edition of the Friday Night Chop Session with Stormybman. This is episode number 76. The spirit of 76 for this Friday, September 4th, 2020. And we are in the house. We're calling this one Boxing Needs Superfights. Yes, I said it. We need super fights, and we're going to talk about that amongst other things for this Friday. So welcome to the Chop Session. I got my man Boxing Conversations with with Reggie Owens. Sorry about that. How you doing, Reggie?
I'm doing good, OG, man. What's happening, man? What's happening, everybody?
I'm amped up, man. I'm amped up. I'm ready to talk about boxing, but I'm also ready to see these fights, get to the point where we're seeing the big matches, man. They're feeding us these little hors d'oeuvres, and I really want to see the bigger matches. What are your thoughts on that, man, as we get ready to get into this conversation?
Oh, hell yeah. I want to see nothing but big name matches, man. I think that's the way the sport should be set up, man. That should be how everything gets calculated. The big names fighting the other big names. That's what makes you move into wanting to be in the position. You claim to be the best. You claim to be the big dog. You need to fight other big dogs. And I definitely would like to see these dudes match it up.
Yeah. And, there's been a lot of, I guess, what brothers have been calling quarantine courage, where we've seen a lot of guys sitting back talking crap, over social media and everything. But, hey, man, we want to see you guys signing some contracts and getting ready to get in the ring with each other, man. Anything else is, it's just that. It's just talk, man. And what are your thoughts, Reggie, on that what has been coined quarantine courage with these guys? You know what I mean?
That mess is bugged out, man, and it goes into what has started to become the norm in kind of this new age of boxing. Is guys have done a lot of steering away from each other. Guys use that quarantine courage to look tough, to kind of get fans wrapped around them to where they'll follow them. And the fans end up getting duped in the end because what these dudes talk, the fans showing the hell ain't going to get. They ain't going to get none of it because before this thing happened, a lot of these fighters ain't never been this damn vocal. None of them. It's the same thing you see when you look on the internet and you watch people do a lot of tough talk and you ain't going to get none of it. The same thing you run into the people on the streets. You get no tough talk unless they got some shit with them. But and that's the same way you see with boxing. What these fighters got with them is the coronavirus locking shit down. So they act tough, talk tough, but none of them want to see each other. And it was some shit that came out of a conversation on Blue Bloods channel between Gary Russell's family and Devin Haney's family. And hopefully we get into that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I have a few things that I prepared for us to discuss this evening, and we can get right into it. I'm going to let D-Style Boxing get on with us this evening. He wants to come on for a few minutes, and I'm going to open up for him. But to just get the grease on the fire, Reggie, when I said that boxing needs super fights, it's nothing more thrilling than to have people, inspired in the sport or inspired by the sport to see the best facing off. I could remember in the mid-'90s when it was finally made that Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield were going to fight. I mean, after so many delays and everything and put-offs for that fight from going all the way back to 1990, when they were going to originally meet and Buster Douglas upset Mike Tyson, and then there went a $12 million guarantee for Evander Holyfield, who witnessed it in person and with his own eyes in February of 1990. Tyson losing to Buster Douglas, and that he was the number one contender for all three sanctioning bodies at the time, believe it or not, and he had a fight scheduled that November with Mike Tyson, and Tyson in February lost to Buster Douglas. And see, back then they did things that way. They were like, they signed contracts, and they were looking to face off with one another, early on, and it's like if you had a fight on the horizon, you sign your contract for your next fight, and get on out there. You know what I mean? And it was amazing that fighters fought like they did, and looked to pretty much face what was on the horizon. Mike Tyson was no different at that time. As the undisputed heavyweight champ, he sought out opponents to face. And man, let me tell you, he had Holyfield lined up. He had another possible fight with, I think it was Frank Bruno, lined up. And, it didn't come to pass. Buster Douglas upset all of that because they thought that Mike was going to go through Buster Douglas, go through Evander Holyfield, and be ready for whatever was next on the horizon. So, but that's what it was. And, nowadays they don't do it like that. Nowadays they just kind of like, sign for one fight, take a year and a half off, fight again, someone else or whatever. And they talk about stuff all the time, but they don't really put themselves in a position to do anything. So there you go. But that's what when I talk about getting back to the super fights, this is what it's about. We have guys who are names in the sport, but they're not looking to stake a claim with their name. They just want to make some money, but they don't want to put anything on the line. And it's time for that to go by the wayside. It's time for the fans to step up and start demanding that these guys step up to the plate, face each other, and have the type of matches that we would like to see them fight. So, that's, what it is. Reggie, I'm sure you remember, you're old enough to remember when Holyfield and Tyson fought, right? And wasn't it a big thing? Your crew of guys around you, the OGs and everything that was around at that time, wasn't they talking about that fight before it happened? They was like, oh man, finally it's getting ready to go down. What are your recollections of that?
Hell, the OGs, me and my homies was talking about, I think I was in the 9th or 10th grade when it was going down. And all that week, that's all we talked about. Because we were groomed and brought up by the older cats who spoke up. But I remember being in high school when the announcement was made. And many people had doubts on Holyfield. I remember the talk was about Holyfield. He had some heart kind of situation that was coming out the news. Everybody still thought of Tyson as being a killer, even with the heart disease. Because like I always say, I wasn't a Tyson fan because I didn't like hearing about Tyson being the baddest man on the planet. I thought I grew up around the baddest people on the planet. So I was rocking with Holyfield, even with the heart thing, but I was still nervous. And I think I put like a $10, $20 bet with one of my friends. But all that week, that's all we talked about. And we got back to school right around that time. I forget when they fought. I don't know if school was still in, but I know when we returned, man, that was all we talked about. We talked about how the fight turned out and how Holyfield made Tyson look. And a lot of folks were shocked to see Holyfield handle Tyson like that. They overlooked the Buster Douglas situation. People counted it as a fluke, but to watch the way Holyfield got in there and dogged Tyson, people were shocked by that. But Holyfield was known as the real deal. That's what they call him out there where I was at. He was known as the real deal Holyfield. So I always had that respect for him because I wasn't too big on Tyson at all. But I knew Tyson was great. Didn't hate on him, but I didn't think he was the baddest man on the planet. And it was just always excitement. But anything that Tyson put his hands on, there was always excitement. People clamored for those events. I'd never seen where families will barbecue. It was like an event. It was an event at the house. You had multiple people in the house. You had to cook. Folks come to your house dressed up and shit, looking fly. And it wasn't just like a kickback. People came there to kick it. And if Tyson won, it turned into some other shit. You end up having a damn house party. So Tyson was an event, man. And it was, you got to give a lot of thanks to what Don King created, because Tyson wasn't the most, didn't have the greatest of personality. He wasn't one of these outwardly type people that kind of excited and drew fanfare around him. That was all the workings of a Don King. Tyson Fury might as well have been one of these fighters who people talk about don't speak English and shit, because he really didn't do nothing to lift himself except for what he did in the ring. But I think Don King's workings were great when it came to what Tyson ended up becoming. But yeah, that's all I got. What's up, my brother D-Style?
Yes, indeed, as Reggie would say. What's going on, D-Style? Welcome to the Friday Night Chop Session, bro. How you doing, man?
Hey, look, I'm doing good. All right, it's Friday night, TGIF. That's what it's all about. I like the topic. Let me say, man, I agree. Boxing needs some big fights for sure. You want me to kind of expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, you're free to expand on it. We opening up the topic, okay, and let's cook.
Absolutely. So check it out. I'm going to cook with Dragon Fire. All right. So everybody listen up here. Right. Boxing needs mega fights. Most of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Right? But for those that don't, right. I mean, I grew up in a time where if some mom, okay, made the mistake of setting up their child's quinceañera, all right, which is kind of the equivalent of a Sweet 16, on the same day as a big fight, well, guess what? We ain't going to continue the quinceañera until the 12th round is over or the fight is by knockout. And then it proceeds, all right? That's just the way it was. That's just the way it should be. Boxing comes first. That's how it was for several fights in my time, man. I miss the energy of house fight parties, there's like this electric kind of feel you get, when you're in a home, especially when the house is divided. Like if I recall Morales versus Barrera, half of the household was going for Morales, half of the household was going for Barrera. And as the ebbs and flow of the fight went on, you could feel this energetic force field in the living room as one side would roar, as Barrera would start a barrage on Morales, and then the other side would roar as Morales came back. And that's the best feeling you will ever get. I will put that against being live at an event. There's nothing like it. Right? And not to mention the butterflies in your stomach that you get right before the bell rings, when it's dawning on you that it's about to happen. After all the hype, after all the wait, after all the promoting, after all the press conferences, after everything, looking at them getting their hands wrapped, they put the gloves on, the ring walks, and they're in the ring, and it's about to ring. You know what I mean? To take the robe off, and they're in the center of the ring. The ref, is giving instructions. Ain't nobody listen to what the hell the ref is saying, because you feel those butterflies in your stomach. That is boxing, and there's nothing like it. And they're stealing it from us. They're not giving it to us. They could give it to us, but these motherfuckers just refuse. They tease us with it. They use that to make money, to withhold it from us, to marinate and all this shit. And I'm tired of it. And it's time to start talking about it. And for those that have never experienced that, if you think you love boxing now, just wait till you experience that. I'll leave it at that for now.
That's absolutely correct. And let me tell you about that Morales and Barrera rivalry and trilogy. These guys, you know, the first time I saw them fight, of course, I was more abreast on Barrera, and I had been hearing of Morales, but didn't really realize the severity of their intense rivalry and what was going on behind the scenes at that time. I later found out, actually years later, what really stoked the flames of their rivalry, and it's quite an interesting story. But the the way these men fought one another, I remember watching the fight live, and I was like, these dudes fighting like the Hatfields and the McCoys in the boxing ring. And it was pillar to post action. I mean, guys on the ropes taking shots and then bouncing off of the ropes and going after the other guy. It was an ebb and flow, unlike what you would normally see in boxing, where somebody might be dictating the tempo and then the other guy picks up, and then vice versa. No, this was something totally different, you know. And to see these guys do what they were doing in that fight, it really spoke volumes about why I love the sport, seeing them compete like that. And even when the decision was announced, they were like still ready to go at it. It was like it didn't matter that, you know, one guy really won or whatever. He wanted the other guy beat down. It was like, man, this is what it's about. But they fought with controlled violence. It was like they used their skills. They weren't just out there like roughhousing or doing dirty tactics or whatever. They were actually behind their skill sets, fighting like that at a very high level, which I don't recall seeing much of anything like that since, unless I could maybe look at the fight that took place between Tim Bradley and Ruslan Provodnikov. That fight right there, it reminded me, you know, now that I think of it, it reminded me of those two guys, Barrera and Morales, because it was that type of action, not necessarily that type of rivalry, but boxing at the top of the sport with men really going at it. And with Provodnikov looked like he was going to take out Tim Bradley with all of his whatever he had. Bradley was holding on, and I don't mean literally holding by tying up. He was trying to stay in the battle. I remember he had been dropped. He was very badly hurt, and he was up against the ropes after the count, and Provodnikov was going after him. And Bradley was like against the ropes, just fighting like, you know, like kids used to do in the playground, you know, when they just windmills. He was just trying to keep Provodnikov off of him to the bell rang. What a fight, man. It was like, and you kind of cheered for Bradley at the time because it was like, damn, he's showing some heart, man. He's trying to stay in there, you know. And Ruslan was trying to get him out of there. But that's what I'm talking about. And we haven't seen boxing like that in a very long time. I'm sure we've had, between then and now, some pretty good fights to speak of, but this is what we're talking about. I want to take a moment and welcome the historian Curtis Anderson, aka Kurt Sugar, also my brother and partner from the Three Wise Men. What's going on, Kurt? How you doing, bro?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. I ain't gonna be on for long. I was talking to my sons. I'm a very hands-on father, you know, and you know, but I had to jump on, man, and you know, listen to, you know, talk and listen to some boxing talk, you know, and you know, you're right. Boxing hasn't been the same, but like fights like Tank and Santa Cruz and the Charlo card, you got 5 title fights, and Teofimo Lomachenko. It's very important that those fights turn out to be thrilling, to get the crowd coming back, you know. So we got a lot of good fights coming up, and you know, I just heard Joshua's fighting Pulev. Well, that's in December 12th. You know, so we're counting on winter and fall fights to be exciting, you know, so we could bring boxing back to some kind of prominence the way it used to be. You remember something? Boxing was front page at one time. It wasn't buried in the back of a newspaper. You know, I remember going to the theater, Capitol Theater in Passaic, New Jersey, and seeing fights like Carlos Arate versus Rafael Gomez and, you know, Sanchez and Gomez. And I will never forget it. It was fever pitch, you know. And for those who don't know Arate, he was a mythical Mexican puncher, man. He was like 56-0 with 55 knockouts. Gomez is like 38-0 with 38 knockouts. And when Gomez hit him and them knees buckled, the crowd went into a frenzy. Rafael Gomez was a great fighter from Portland. You know, many times I said 32 straight knockouts tied with Deontay Wilder all-time record. 17 straight knockouts and title defenses. That's greatness. And boxing crowd, when Gervonta Davis was fighting, I don't know, Yuriorkis Gamboa, 30 or 40% of the people was texting, looking at the cell phone, because I'm always looking at the audience. So, you know, you tell me, you know, is this a real boxing crowd these days or not?
Yeah, to see, you look out in the audience and see people on their phones, man, that's like, you know, that's disrespectful, man. You're actually sitting up there with a live fight card and you're looking at the doggone cell phones. That's, you know, and maybe a damn video on the phone, you know. But Reggie, do you have a recount of a particular fight within recent memory or going back within the past decade that was one of those, you know, super fights that you look forward to, and then, you know, they delivered when you got a chance to sit there at home, whatever you did, you know, to get yourself prepared for a fight. D-Style mentioned Barrera and Morales, which was a great one to witness when it happened live. Was there one for you?
Yeah, I can include some names that are currently fighting. Spence and Porter. This is a hellified fight. That Absolutely. Was a throwback fight to me, and it was worth it. Hell, I enjoyed the hell out of the damn Charlo versus Harrison 2 fight. That was a thriller, and to see it deliver with the ending result of a come from behind knockout, that was a spectacular fight, and I just enjoy what I've seen in that fight. There's been some recent good matches that have come about, but it's just that the fans aren't the same, and the fans aren't educated. The fans don't follow the sport, but it still doesn't take away. But no matter of fact, I ain't gonna even say the fans. It's the media. It's the guys who broadcast this shit that aren't the same, and they add a lot to what takes away from the sport, and they add a lot into what influences some of the real deep casualness of these fight fans, and they don't know what's good, they don't know what's not. They rather watch KSI versus Logan Paul, and they think that's great boxing. But that thing is changing though. People are going to become more educated on the sport, but these dudes are going to have to start getting in here. This Corona courage shit that they talking, that shit got to cease, got to end. But with people who do content like us, putting more pressure and not accepting that crap and having a voice, and also going against these old crafty little sports writers who bring about that BS. So I think we'll get back around to it because we have had some recent great fights. And matter of fact, and I'll add Hurd and when What's-the-Name won the title from. Those some good fights, but I'll pass it on.
Yes, sir. And when we talk about trying to get these super fights made, I'm going to swing it back to D-Style since you wanted to come on and cook a bit. I'm going to get you back in here before you go and Kurt again. If you're going to put these guys of today in a super fight position, D-Style, what's one of the main things that these guys would need to do, according to, in your opinion, to get themselves geared for a potential super fight? Because, you know, these guys of today, they're counting dollars before they even make them, right? So what principalities will need to be brought into order for that to happen for today?
think the first thing that these fighters need to do is put an emphasis and focus on their craft before anything. And I think right now, like you said, a lot of guys are counting their dollars already. Too many of these guys are looking for that big payday before they prove anything. And I think that's problematic, not just in boxing, by the way, in just about every sport, but in boxing it's most damaging because it's not sport. It's not like a team thing. You're an individual in there, even though you come in with a team, but they can't fight for you, But that's the main thing, focusing on your craft and staying active. And I think the biggest problem fighters have today is their inactivity. They're kind of just, waiting for that moment to, strike and get that big opportunity. But that's not how you get an opportunity. You got to go out there. You got to stay active. You got to, knock down those doors and not ask permission. And I think that's the problem. It may seem like they're demanding, like, I want to fight that guy. And but like if you can't force them to go in the ring with you, so stop asking and force them. Knock down those doors. Unlock those doors yourself and get in. And what I mean by that is if you stay active, if you fight the mandatories, you'll become a mandatory. If you fight the eliminators, you'll become a mandatory. They'll have to fight you. It'll have to go to purse bid. There's nowhere to run. Even with the messed up rules of today, there's a way to do it. That's what Bernard Hopkins did. What did he do? You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to collect all the belts. I'm going to become the guy you got to fight. I'm going to collect all the belts, and all roads at middleweight will come through Bernard Hopkins. And guess what? When it was time for Trinidad to move up, he was thinking about fighting Roy Jones and stuff. Well, guess what? Road to Roy Jones, you got to get through me first, right? Because I got all the belts, or he didn't have all of them at that time, but right. He still kind of, he had, he beat Joppy and the whole nine, but nonetheless, he collected most of those belts. And then the bigger purse came, right? Right. After accomplishing everything, after, so many title defense, I forgot how many he had before the De La Hoya fight. I think it was 18. Yeah. Or 17, something like that. So De La Hoya fight came. That was a big money fight for him. That was a big mega fight for him. It wasn't his toughest fight. It wasn't his toughest opponent, but it was his biggest payday. What did he do? He just made it happen. He didn't ask for permission, right? I think that's what these fighters have to do now. Just one quick example. Gary Russell Jr. is over here sticking his hand out, waiting for somebody to give him a payday. Right? He's so desperate right now. He's calling out Gary Russell. Crawford all the way at 147. Oh, you're just fighting once a year, bro. That's it. Once a year. How about you get more active, fight more guys? You know what I mean? And put yourself in better positions and force some of these guys around your weight class to fight you. I think that's what they got to do.
Absolutely, and I second that. And when you use a name like Gary Russell Jr., you can ask a mere so-called casual, what do they know about Gary Russell? And they'll probably look at you upside your head like, who are you talking about? And that's part of the problem. But what you mentioned about Hopkins, he did the exact thing that you should do. He went out there, he worked at acquiring all of the belts. He participated in that tournament because, now these guys don't even want to do that right there. Well, I got this title. I don't want to be in that tournament. That's beneath me or whatever. But what came with doing that, a lot like what happened with Andre Ward's career, he gained respect because those men that he had to defeat to acquire those titles, they were the champions of the day. They were the men who held those titles. And some of them had decent boxing records and everything. But at the same time, when he proved that he was better than the lay of the land, the respect came. And also when he fought the big money fight against like De La Hoya, as you said, the money came. And so now you have a marriage of money and respect. You build upon it and you go forward. And that's exactly what he did until Joe Smith knocked him out the ring. You know what I mean? And if you look at it, he did it the right way. These men here, they want to take back alley turns and tunnels and, you know, climb over fences and everything, but they don't want to walk straight ahead into the fire of what they need to face to arrive at what Hopkins was able to do so successfully. Kurt, I'd like to throw that same question at you about what do these guys really need to do to bring about the platform for super fights? What are your ideas toward that?
Well, boxing has to be promoted properly. You know, these guys, you know, like it takes too long to put together a super fight. You know, Joshua and Wilder should have been happened. Spence and Crawford should have been happened. You know, but you know, it's when you have fights like Porter versus Formella, and you got you guys versus Abel Ramos, and who else fought? Who else fought? My mind is slipping. There was another fight that wasn't that good. You know, it's going to turn people off because you know who's going to win. It's very rare that you'll catch lightning in a bottle where you have a major upset like a Ruiz and Joshua. But, you know, you need these, you know, one good platform was when Spence fought after the Olympics. The ratings were so high because people miss boxing. I mean, it was millions, you know, when he fought Leonard Bundu, you know, but, you know, you don't really have a face in boxing. See, when I talk about a face in boxing, you know, Tyson or De La Hoya, who had 80% women in the audience, I never seen that. Well, I think he fought Steve Forbes. I'm not sure. And you had, you know, Mike Tyson was like an event, or Mayweather or Ali or Leonard. You know, you don't have that anymore. You know, Spence and Crawford is a very good fight. But you see how long it's taken, you know. So that's why I say these fights that's coming up, you have to move boxing back to prominence. You know, if Teofimo wins in dramatic fashion, he has a big personality. He can become a star. But it's up. It's a combination of many things. It's media. Even the media is not like it, you know, was, you know, like Steve Kim and Dan Raphael. I don't respect those guys as boxing reporters. You know, I grew up Bill Gallo and Jerry Eisenberg and Bert Sugar and Art Rush Jr. Those was real boxing writers, man. You know, with the cigar in the mouth and the fedora hats and, you know, the grungy voices and the unshaved beards. Those were the real boxing guys, you know, and just like I was saying before on not pay-per-view, excuse me, closed circuit, it was the working man, you know, that went to the fights that supported boxing, the blue collar working guy, you know, popcorn and beer spilling, you know, on the floor and people going crazy and cigarette smoke. Those was real boxing crowds. They didn't take their eye off the screen, you know, but it's just a different generation, man. And isn't it eerie that music and boxing has so much, you know, in common? When music was great, when you had the Marvin Gayes and War, the group from LA, and, you know, Parliament Funkadelic in the 70s, boxing was great. 60s, you had the Sam Cooks and rest of those guys, boxing was great. 50s, you had the jazz artists, boxing was great. 80s, you had hip hop, you know. 90s was pretty good, you know, with the New Jack Swing and all that, you know, and don't forget soft rock of the 70s, who I grew up on, Steely Dan and Billy Joel. It is weird how when music went away, the good boxing went away. They have so much in common, but it's many things. You know, fighters just don't have the personalities that they that the old fighters have. I was watching a fight today. that you guys should watch Jerry Quarry versus Ken Norton. That's a hell of a fight, man. They was like two rock'em sock'em robots, man. The punches they were hitting each other with, you know. And I just missed that old, you know, man, I don't know how to explain it, man. It's just when you become spoiled, you know. So I'm not going to wait around for Spencer Crawford to fight, man. You know, it takes too long. So I'm going to pass the mic.
Yeah, Spencer Crawford. A fight that I don't think is going to happen. Anyway, let me go to Reggie. Reggie, what do you think? What are some of your ideas that you have that can bring about super fights of today? How do you see it with these guys and what they need to do?
I think the people who back these fights with money have to put greater demands on it. They need to go back and, even like how we want fans to study the sport, we want boxers to study the sport. I think some of the people who are behind the executive side of the sport needs to go back and study shit. They need to go back and study the book of Don King, whoever the greats that put on top level fights. These folks need to do their studying too. A lot of these guys are just getting into it, looking at this for as an opportunity of making money, stealing money, manipulating people just because they come from a silver spoon privileged background, and they can put on these events, being this is a sport with talented people who come from poor backgrounds, and they can dump off whatever. And I just think it's more of them needing to put more demands and pressure on fighters. Like I was hearing the story about the who was a white guy that ducked. He was ducking Jack Johnson for so long, wouldn't give him the opportunity. And to the promoter, he was like, "Here's the money right here. Either you take it or lose it. You turn this money down, you're gonna look like the biggest clown." And especially when you dealt with the real representation of the racial side of things, you will really make not yourself look bad, but your people look bad. And that's also the thing, like putting on these fights, having those folks, even like with the Europeans, you see a lot of billionaires coming in backing some of these European fighters, putting the money up for it because they want to see these events. And I think that's possibly what has to take place. It's getting some of these people locked into things. And I think the thing that takes away from it, and I was talking about this last night, is there's too many parts that interfere with the sport. Like even with the Canelo thing, I'm in agreement with the zone telling this fool, we ain't airing that fight. You're not you're not fighting this opponent. Now, I think that's a problem when a network can interfere and can tell and dictate who a fighter is going to fight. When the game is supposed to have structure, if certain people are ranked in certain positions, you're supposed to fight them, not have a network tell you who you're going to fight or whatnot. Then you deal with them playing this both sides of the street. So now I'm signed to this promoter. He doesn't want to fight on this side. He's not in this exclusive deal with this network. So you got too many things that interfere. And I think that type of shit needs to be broken apart from the game. This should be a free and open market within the sport, especially an individualized sport, that you make people go out and bid. Anytime one of these big fights are put together or someone is positioned and ranked in a certain spot, there needs to be people that put in, hey, quiet y'all, that are put in position that have to pay. They have to bid top dollar to get in these fights, to get in the exclusive deals. And that way it benefits the fighter, it benefits the sport, and it benefits the fans. But all this exclusivity shit has to be broken away from the sport. But that's all I got on that.
That was a great segue, you mentioning Canelo, because that's where I wanted to move going forward with news that we had heard about. Now DAZN doesn't want to allow his fight on their air with the opponent that he has chosen to fight. And after they threw all that money at him, overpaying this guy, and it was okay for Kovalev, it was okay for, who was the other guy that he fought? It's like, these people that really didn't even deserve to be in the ring because of what they brought. It's like they just threw a whole bunch of money at the guy, and now they're mad because he's the fat cat that they've overfed, that don't want to go chase mice anymore. Come on, man. You know, you guys did that. You overpaying for these guys who haven't shown much and everything, and now you want to get mad. It's good that it's happened to a app like DAZN and everything, but we still need to get back to the basics of making these guys realize that fanfare won't be there as far as paying public for fights. And even now that we have this new normal, as everybody has been coining it, there won't be any audiences anytime soon. And the thing about these guys, they're going to realize even the social media thing, where they get a chance to sit up and talk with social media all the time and be running off at the mouth and everything, people are going to get tired of them and look for something new, because we live in a fast food society where they want their news, their entertainment, and everything fresh daily. So these guys are going to be stale very quickly. So D-Style, with the news of what has transpired behind the scenes with what's going on between Oscar De La Hoya and Canelo Alvarez and DAZN and Golden Boy, what are your thoughts regarding this? Isn't it nice? I'll kind of push you in a certain direction. Isn't it nice to see these things that they're kind of going up in smoke?
Well, one, I want to take while I believe elements of the story, I don't trust Coppinger. I think he's the one that broke the story. He's been wrong about a lot of stuff, but you know, he's been right about some stuff too, right? So who knows? But I do kind of lean towards believing what's happening, and you know, prize fighting wasn't designed to do it the way DAZN is doing it. It wasn't designed to guarantee a guy $35 million or any amount for 11 straight fights. It just wasn't designed that way. It doesn't work that way. That there's no way. You know, there has to be things like incentive. You have to, you know, incentivize a guy, you know, to fight better opposition. That's how you make more money. Prize fighting has to be designed to the tougher fights you take, the more money you make. More people want to see the fight, more money you make. It has to be designed that way. And it was designed that way, not the way DAZN is running it. And especially not the way they did the Canelo contract. I think they jumped the gun. I think they enabled the behavior. Eddie Hearn did not help matters by coming out and telling everybody what the budget was. Like, hey, guys, we got $1 billion for this X amount of years to spend. And then you're shocked that these fighters are like, well, you got the money, you know, like, and then you're over, not just Canelo, by the way, you're overpaying Gennady Golovkin to fight Steve Rolls. You're in hopes that Gennady Golovkin and Canelo fight each other. If you're paying Canelo to fight $35 million to fight anybody, right? I don't blame him if he says, well, you got to fork out more money if you want me to fight Golovkin or any other top guy. You know, because you set that precedent. That's the zone's fault. You know, it's hard for me to blame any fighter for taking advantage of, you know, getting money. Shit, I get the money too. I got to be honest. All right?
Hey, hold my wallet till next week, you know.
Yeah, like what? You know what I mean? Like the zone. I mean, just think about it. You know, well, what's going on over here, bro? Like it's not the way it's designed to be, man. Like honestly, like these contracts, like these long-term set deal, set amount contracts really don't work. If you really go back and really look at it, you really don't. You have to have a fight by fight basis in boxing, because that's the way it runs. And I hate to break it to you guys, okay? All you boxing fans, I hate to be the one to tell you guys that Santa Claus isn't real, but I'm going to be that guy, okay? Ready for this? We need pay-per-view. Pay-per-view gives us bigger fights because it incentivizes the fighters to fight better opposition and bigger fights. It makes super fights, okay, when you have pay-per-view. You guys are out of your mind if you think, right, paying less for boxing with an app, okay, yet fighters making more money than ever equals super fights, all right? You're out of your mind. You have to fork out the money. We got to pay for it as fans if you want these super fights, right? And we're paying. Like, here's the thing: we're paying anyway. You're paying for the zone anyway, right? $29.99 a month is what I'm paying. I pay for it, okay? I don't know why, but I pay for it. Right? Somebody talked me out of it, right? Because I have no fucking clue why I'm paying for this shit, right? Or $19.99, I apologize, not $29. But nonetheless, you're still paying. It's still pay per the view, right? And I wish, look, man, like since the days of, when the fights were a big thing and they were in stadiums with Jack Johnson and, Biden, Tunney and them, guess what, man? You have to pay a lot of money to go see that fight. And the fact that those gates were selling a lot incentivized these fighters to fight these fights. And then we had closed circuit. It incentivized the fighters to fight better opposition, plus they were just made differently back then. But nonetheless, you knew it was a big fight because it was on closed circuit. Okay, and then pay-per-view came about, all right? And that's just the way it is. So I hate to be the guy to tell you guys, but we need pay-per-view. Right? It's what separates, all right? It's what separates the, fights to the big fights. But that's all I got.
Yeah, thank you for those comments. Kurt, coming back to you. What were your thoughts with some of this news that came out regarding how DAZN is feeling about Canelo and his $35 million a pop for these soft touches, and they no longer want to air that. They want him to step up and fight some people.
I'm not surprised because you have so much invested in Canelo. I have the DAZN D style. I pay yearly. I paid $100 a couple of weeks ago, and my subscription is going to last me till late August 2021. They just have too much boxing on there, and I love boxing. They got a card with Martinez, Estrada, and Chocolatito that's coming. They just announced it, a triple header that's coming on DAZN. I said, man, I still, it's not, DAZN's not bad. They had the Super Series. It's not DAZN's fault. They have some good things. They have a lot of boxing on there. They had the Regis Prograis and Josh Taylor fight. They had a lot of great fights on there. The Ruiz and Joshua. It's boxing as whole and the matchups. We already seen Canelo and Rocky Fielding. So DAZN got pissed off. They said, hey, you got to fight somebody of note, man. And I don't think it's Canelo, man. He's a fighter. I'm going to tell you that now. You may hate him, but he's a fighter. It's Oscar, want him to become this big crossover James Dean kind of star. And they have so much money invested in him. They think they could just put him in the ring with anybody. Look at Canelo's face sometimes. He's really not happy, with how De La Hoya does things. De La Hoya didn't want Canelo to fight Lara. It was Canelo who said, nah, I got to fight this man. I got to fight this man. But Yildirim is a joke of a fight, like Rocky Fielding. We knew he was going to be Kovalev because Kovalev was past it. We want to see fights like Canelo and Beterbiev and, fights that could be competitive on paper. We don't know how it's going to turn out in the ring, but that's the fight I want to see. Benavidez and Canelo. Fights that make your mouth water, and we're not getting them. We're getting poor product, and you can't fool the people. You can't, especially hardcore boxing fan. It's a joke. So, I wouldn't be surprised if that fight ends up on Showtime. I really wouldn't. But Sugar Ray Leonard said something years ago. He said, I always did a fight-by-fight, contract. You get more money, and D Styles brought that up, and Ray was right. That's a sweet deal. 365 million for 11 fights, somebody?
Yeah, breakdown.
Ain't it?
Yeah.
They're 365, but the zone said, well, if you fight these soft touches, we're going to cut your money. We're going to take, you're only getting 40% of your money, which I can understand. I like the model, the zone, but I just wish they would, good fights and big fights has to be, more often. You can't wait 2-3 years for a big fight, a super fight to happen. It has to be done. Before, boxing had a model. It had parameters. When a guy fought for the NABF title or the USBA title, those are regional titles. And if he won, he was getting a title shot. That was 100%. So there was a formula. He was getting the title shot. But now, boxing is all over the place, and, better be even Canelo and Canelo, Charlo. These fights have to be made. You have great matchups, man. Estrada and Chocolatito, make that fight. Now, that fight probably will happen because, they've shared their card, so they're just promoting it. And then the next fight should be Chocolatito and Estrada, should be, and we done had some great fights, Thurman and Porter and, Porter and Spence, but it has to be more often, so that's how I feel about it. I'm going to fall out, let you guys cook. I'm going to listen, and, I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.
All right, man. Much respect, Kurt. Thanks for stopping by, bro.
Let me just say something really quick. So I agree. I do agree with Kurt that overall, I think the zone is a good thing. It does give us a lot of boxing that we were not getting. We were not getting a lot of those England cards and stuff before. And I'm looking forward to a lot of the cards. My only thing is, I think it doesn't allow for big mega fights to really happen. Like, the zone hasn't produced, like when we talk about super fights, it's produced great fights, for us hardcore fans, but it hasn't done anything to really do any crossover type fights. Like a fight that you could say, man, you know what? The zone had it, but if that fight was on pay-per-view, it would have done over 1 million buys. They haven't had that fight yet, in my opinion.
Right. So, D-Style, running that right back to you with that remark, what do you think needs to be done? What can they do to change that and turn that around where there could be a greater demand for pay-per-view?
Well, you mean boxing as a whole, or you mean the zone?
Talking the zone, because that was what you just mentioned, what one of their weaknesses.
So, I mean, I know I'm going to be the bad guy, but they're going to have to, just like ESPN Plus does it. Like ESPN Plus charges less per month, so instead of $19.99, you pay $5.99. Then, hey, if they have a pay-per-view, you got to pay for the pay-per-view. It's $60, it's $60. But you need that model. The reason, because look, man, no one is in business to lose money. Right? It's just the way it is. It's just the reality. So, the reason like ESPN Plus and Showtime put some of the fights on pay-per-view is to give us more fights, but at the same time, subsidize some of the money that they're spending and make it back in pay-per-view. I mean, that's really what it is. Right? And the way, I think it's the way it should be. So, the answer, lower the subscription price, right? Give us most of the fights, like 95% of them, okay, on the zone still. Don't get ridiculous about it. But charge less per month, right? The yearly subscription, make it less per month, right? And, if you have to charge an extra, $20 or something for a specific fight, do that. That's the way they're going to have to do it. It's the only way. People are going to be like, no, I don't want to pay more money. Well, then you're going to keep getting Advil, urine, and Rocky Fielding then. You know what I mean? Like, if that's the way it is. Like, if Canelo says, I want more money to fight one of those guys, and the zone says, no, well, we already agreed to what you're going to get, and they're in a standstill, then we get no fight. And they're able to say, okay, tell you what, get you your guarantee, and if your fight sells on pay-per-view extra, right, then you'll make your pay-per-view cut. Like, you'll earn it by selling it. Right? That's the way it should work. Like, if you had a car dealership, if you were the owner of a car dealership and you paid every guy, every salesman, guaranteed, no matter what they sell, right? You're not gonna pay them what they sell. You're just gonna give them, $10,000 a month every single one of them, right? Doesn't matter if they sell no cars, if they sell a little bit of cars, if they sell a lot of cars. It doesn't matter. Do you really think these motherfuckers are going to sell any cars? They're going to sell shit, all right? These fighters want to make the big bucks. Guess what? Got to produce the big bucks. You put, the old saying is asses in seats. Well, nowadays is clicking on the order button, right? That's what it is. So when you look at a Floyd Mayweather, for example, right? People could say what they want about Floyd. Believe me, I'm one of them. I have a lot of criticisms about Floyd. Compared to some of these new age guys, that dude earned his stripes. Okay, that guy was fighting on HBO Championship Boxing and making $2-3 million per fight and stuff like that. Okay, then sometimes less than that. He finally made about $3 million on his first pay-per-view with Gotti. Wasn't even the lion's share. Gotti took about 51% of the money. Right? Guess what? He did all right. He did okay. They kept him on pay-per-view. They put him in there with Zab Judah. He did okay. They kept him on pay-per-view. So now he was making more money because he was selling. All right? Then they put him in there against Baltimore. Then De La Hoya. And then they said, oh, well, that's because it was De La Hoya. But then he did almost a million with Haddon. Then over $1 million with Marquez. And then he kept doing over $1 million with Ortiz and Cotto. Okay, close to $1 million with Maidana. Well, guess what? He was getting paid for what he was producing, right? That's why pay-per-view is needed, in my opinion. And the Zone should have an option, like ESPN Plus does, to charge extra for the big mega fights. Believe me, I know you guys hate it, but it's going to give us more fights, all right? Bigger fights. That's what I got.
That's great stuff, though, man. And you made valid points. So did Kurt. Reggie, did you have anything else you wanted to chime in on that before we move forward?
Yeah, man, that thing about the long-term contract, I thought that's a pretty good point. And that's kind of another thing that kind of sets the sports back. Because what it does is it adds to where people become complacent. Here you are signed with a promotional deal. You have certain guarantees as far as maybe you're making this and that per fight. It makes you it gives you less of an incentive to going out there finding bigger fights. It puts you into a mind state to where you think you didn't arrive. You think you're the man. You're taking on fights that people don't want to see. You think you're just attracting people to events because you are the name that you are. And I think that's something that has ruined the sport and something that should be taken away. If I was a promoter in this game, I would never sign a fighter to a long-term promotional contract. And even if I was a fighter, I wouldn't want to. I think the thing that Mikey Garcia is doing is the perfect way that a fighter should live out their career. I think what it incentivizes is for a promoter, a promotional company to have to search for these big fights, to put up the proper amount of money. That way it makes fighters work much harder. Fighters do a better job of building their brain. They become more serious about the sport of boxing. And also that should be the same thing with these networks, such as a DAZN or whatnot. A DAZN can go out there and they see two fighters that they like, or they hear if a sanctioned body has ordered a certain fight. Now a sanctioned body comes in there, like, we can do this and that with this fight, being these fighters are who they are. You kind of forecast what you think the event will look like, how you're going to run promotional ads to get people up in there, and you begin to make your money that way. And I think it adds more for fighters to kind of be to give it all in the ring, because you want other networks to go out there and you'd be a sought after fighter that's out there, because the networks, once you're on their thing, you can sit them all at the table, make them bid for your events, whatever fights you're going into it, and it should work that way. It becomes more lucrative for the fighters. It becomes more lucrative for a promoter, becomes more lucrative for a damn network. Pretty soon you're going to see networks and promoters going at it, because now you can almost bypass the network. I mean, a promoter, with the way the networks have gotten involved into it. Somebody got to be cut up out the way of this shit. But I think just long-terming fighters, it also puts fighters in a bad position because now you done long-termed yourself. You get to where a promoter can sit your ass on the shelf. And that's one of the things that's one of the lessons that Mikey Garcia learned and why he's maneuvering the way he is. And it's become more beneficial for Mikey Garcia. Even in losing performances, it's become lucrative for Mikey Garcia. It also gives fighters the opportunity to have to go out and brand themselves. Fighters should be selling merchandise. That's the one thing these fighters are missing out, to where they have no real fanfare. A lot of them aren't the face of boxing. They couldn't put nothing onto the market to sell it with their name behind it to get people to buy. They wouldn't move the units. But I think making fighters fight on a fight per fight basis adds more to them. It makes them give more to the sport, as nothing is guaranteed. Everything is earned and worked for. And I think that will add value to the sport of boxing. It would really add value to the boxing. If I was in this game, had big bread, I would not sign any fighter to a lucrative deal, especially if I was a network. I'll make them earn this shit. And that way people come back to want to see these events. And that way, if you a star, then maybe this network wants you back after they may want you back. And then it gives the networks the opportunity. If this fighter's falling off, they ain't producing shit, we ain't got to worry about it. We ain't got to put them on here. We can go seek the other guys that are out there and put on events. It also gives us opportunities to build the name of fighters. And then maybe these fighters become loyal to our network or our brand or whatnot. But I think that's some of the ideals that I would like to see in this game. But I think long-terming contracts for fighters is what kills the game off, because it leads to where these fighters become lazy. They become too complacent, and it doesn't give them any incentives. And plus, I would get rid of, A-side, B-side type contracts. I'll make these fighters fight for a lion's share type of deal. Even if I was on some Crawford Spence, it wouldn't be who's the biggest name. It's going to be winner takes 55%, loser takes 45, or winner takes 60, loser takes 40%. That way they get in there, they it's a dog fight. And if you quit, not saying you get knocked out, but if you quit in the fight, it reduces that as well. If a fighter makes you quit, you pass over 10% of that purse as well, leaving you with 30%. That way it gives more incentive for these fighters to train harder in training camp and give their all inside that ring. But that's the way I run the game.
Can I say something real quick?
Sure.
Well, I just want to kind of add a little bit to what Reggie's saying. Like a caveat, look. If boxers, like the sport of boxing, right? It was never designed, it's never happened or anything like that. Okay. I mean, I don't even think tennis pays guys like a contract like that. You know what I mean? That's ridiculous, right? But that is an issue to me. Long-term contracts, like just even a 2-fight contract, problematic. The best example I got for you was, and Teddy Atlas brought this up, was the Devin Alexander Bradley fight. They paid those guys like $3 million each, and then they guaranteed them like $3 million on their next fight. Better if they won or lost. So he pointed out, like, the moment Bradley was kind of overwhelming Alexander, and he did headbutt him, Alexander started touching he started hit this dude. It's the opposite side of his face, not even the side that Bradley hit. Okay, went, like, you know what I mean? Like, dude, like, come on, bro. He didn't even hit you there. He hit you on the other side. Teddy Atlas pointed out, he said, you know what? In his mind, he said to himself, I'm not going to win this fight. I want out of this fight. I'm going to make $3 million on my next fight anyway. Make money anyway. So I don't need to dig deep in this fight. You know what I mean? And in my opinion, he found a way out of that fight. I agree with Teddy. I don't agree with Teddy Atlas all the time, but I do agree with him. He found a way out in that fight. You know, so guaranteeing guys and enabling things. Look, anytime we enable this behavior, right now we got dudes saying the zone should just give Adrian Broner the $10 million. They got the money, just give it to him, right? I don't want the zone to give him shit. and I get the argument. Well, they gave it to Kovalev. He's a bigger name. Look, at the end of the day, we cannot enable that behavior because look at what I just said. In the future, someone else is going to say, well, they gave it to Adrian Broner, so why not this guy? And they're going to give it to that guy. It becomes a never-ending domino effect. All right? So, and let me just tell you guys this, and I want this to sink in for everybody. Okay? I'm all for boxers making their money, all that. And I'm not blaming, and I want to make this clear, I'm not blaming the fighters. Fighters should get all the money they can get. They ain't going to be fighting forever. But, and if they could break bank, hey, do it. You know what I mean? But, here's my but. I'll tell you guys something. I would rather, all right, 25 guys, 25 prize fighters make $2 million, okay? $50 million total, than one guy make $50 million. Especially they're not even worth that. Okay, I'd rather 10 prize fighters get their $1 million payday, right? They could put food on their table and feed their family, put a roof over their head, okay, because they've been fighting for little small checks. I'd rather 10 guys get their $1 million payday than Adrian Broner get a $10 million check. Get overpaid that way. So I'm all for fighters getting paid, but money and the budget is fight night. Okay, there's only so much of it. So when guys tell me, oh, no, man, these fighters got to put food on the table. Once you're overpaying a guy by $6-7 million, when you're overpaying them by those outrageous amounts, it's no longer about food on the table. That's excess money, right? And you know what that's doing? That's taking money off of other fighters' tables, okay? Look at some of these undercards. Some of these guys are making $2,000-3,000, and guess what? They're bleeding just as much, getting hit just as much. They're training just as hard. They're sweating just as much. And many times they're just as talented. People just haven't, they just haven't had the shot yet. It's food for thought.
Yeah, man. You guys, everybody, including Kurt, who's dropped off and dropped back into the chat, you made some very valid points. And check out this post that Kurt made when he got back in the chat. He said, this was a Don King boxing card in 1994. Zuma Nelson versus Jesse James Leha. Gerald McClellan versus Julian Jackson. Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. versus Frankie Randall. And Terry Norris versus Simon Brown. Had to put my glasses on. I'm sorry, I was squinting as I was reading that. But that was a card for Don King, one of his pay-per-view cards from 1994. All of those fighters were fighting championship matches in a pay-per-view card, and you had the junior welterweight title, the middleweight title, the junior middleweight title, and what was that? The super featherweight title, all on that card. And all of those men who held the titles got on that card so they could be seen on pay-per-view, and they all benefited from it, and they all had memorable bouts. That card is a memorable card. Kurt and I was just talking about that card, and D-Style and I were talking about Azuma Nelson and Jesse James Leha recently, just within the past week. So it's like, here we are, and we're reminiscing on the wonderment that was a part of the sport at that time, because these men were facing one another in pay-per-view events, big fights, super fights, and sometimes all on one night. We haven't seen that in ages. And these prima donnas today, of course they're going to take this money of being overpaid. Huh? What was that? Did you say something, Reg? I'm sorry. Anyway, these guys, they don't want to take, a fight that they don't feel that they're getting paid enough money for. And for Adrian Broner to tell somebody to pay him $10 million to come out and fight. Have you seen his stomach? I wouldn't pay to watch him eat and drink what he eat and drink to fill that belly up. that dude is like, and the mindset behind all of that. But what's even worse is the mindset behind the people who are paying this money out. There's no way in the world you should have given all that money to Canelo like that.
And that's our money too.
Exactly. And they're raping us because we want to pay to watch boxing, but we know that he's not going to fight nobody, so we really don't want to see him. You understand? But you're putting him in the way, and you're giving him our money. What kind of mess is that? And then you have guys out here that should be on television or be televised or be in a position where the people can see them because they're good and they can deliver the goods, and they're left by the wayside. So, it's really a conundrum within the sport of today, but I do believe that the discussion that we're having here, we're on the right track, because our money, we can control that narrative if we hold fast to our principles, but we just have to make certain that we are on par and on the same page with what the principles are.
I need to say something about Don King, because Don King is an easy target for people. They state a lot of obvious things. He was corrupt, and he screwed over a lot of fighters. Look, I'm not here to tell people that Don King was an angel. Okay, look, Don King didn't do anything different than a lot of these other promoters do. Okay, the difference between Don King and these other promoters is Don King gave us better fight cards, and he gave us what we're talking about today, super fights, and he did it often. Okay, sometimes you have several super fights in one card. People talk about the UFC cards. You should look at these Don King cards. Okay, but what I'll say to a lot of people is this, right? I'm not saying all the fighters are wrong, and I'm not saying Don King is right about everything. However, some of these fighters, man, I think people get in their ears. It seems like they were happy with the millions they made. I mean, Mike Tyson was swimming in money, all right? Could you argue maybe Don King screwed him over? I'm sure if we look at the numbers, maybe he did. I don't know. I just know Mike Tyson was a multi-millionaire. Okay, but I'll say this though. Okay, I don't think people are taking into account. You guys do know Don King had to pay Christy Martin too, right? And she was on the undercards. If Chavez was on the undercard, he had to pay him too, right? If Finito Lopez was on the undercard, he had to pay Finito Lopez. Finito Lopez go fight in Japan to make his money. So Don King had to beat whatever it was that the Japanese guys were paying him. He wanted him on an undercard, right? It cost money to make this undercard. He had to pay these people, okay? And the fact that Don King had these great cards, right, meant that fight fans understood. What if I buy a Don King event, right? I'm going to get my money's worth. Okay, whatever I pay for it, I'm getting my money's worth. Right? Fans knowing that, okay, meant that we went a long time when people weren't complaining that much about pay-per-views. All right? So all that stuff, he robbed this guy, he robbed that guy, and this fighter said he robbed him, that guy said he robbed him. Look, and not to give myself a cheap plug, but I interviewed Christy Martin, and I think she said it best. Okay? Look, if he got it in writing, Don King honored every cent that was in writing. Okay? If you took his word for it and shook his hand, that's on you. It's not just Don King. Bob Barron will rip your ass off too if he's just as stupid enough to just shake his hand, right? But Bob Barron just won't give us fans a great undercard, though. I mean, he'll just do the same shit Don King's doing, right? Golden Boy will do the same shit because a lot of dudes left Golden Boy too, right? They'll do the same shit these motherfuckers are doing. They just won't. They won't give the fight fans shit for it. Okay, give me the corrupt promoter that gave us great fights over the corrupt promoter that gives us shit fights any day. I'll say that.
Indeed. So let's move forward with some news that came in this week of a possible deal being worked on behind the scenes that may see Bud Crawford and Kell Brook at some point. This is a fight that some people were saying, oh, it's a good fight for Bud because he'll be finally fighting someone. People were also saying Kell Brook is finished. You know, he should be a weight class above or whatever by this time because he was having trouble making the weight and blah, blah, blah. Some people were saying that this is just another showcase for Bud because this is a beaten and broken fighter. You know, we've heard a lot of the stories that have been said behind the scenes and in front of our faces regarding a potential fight between these two gentlemen. I would like to get you guys' take on if this is the next fight for Bud Crawford moving forward. How do you feel about it? And what do you think it could do for either guy? Reggie, what do you have to offer on that?
Wait, I had missed the part where you said the opponent. Wait, who was the opponent you was talking about for Bud?
Kell Brook.
Oh man, I don't know what to think of that one, man. I don't know what the thing I can give Kell Brooks is, outside of him being a damaged fighter, just based on the eye injuries, there's nothing he could do to continue on when those type of injuries come up. It wasn't like he was knocked out. It wasn't like he was dropped in the Errol Spence fight and even in the Triple G fight. This dude is still a hella fighter, and I got to give him that. Reasoning for stoppages was some medical shit. But other than that, he was giving Triple G a highly competitive fight, being this dude moving up in weight. I thought he was beating on Triple G for quite a bit of that fight. Even growing into the Errol Spence fight, he was beating on Errol Spence, and many people was attributing to Earl being on that away from the sport for whatever amount of time he was away from. But Kell Brooks was just beating him to the punch, was really making Earl look like he was one step behind the guy until the fight started to build itself up. But once again, he gets hit up in that eye, and the eye socket injury occurred, so it was nothing the guy can do, being that was broken. But outside of that shit, he gave Earl probably one of his most competitive fights outside of Kell Brooks. And that's ironic. The two fighters he's the same guy who gave Sean Porter one of his toughest fights as well. But Kell Brooks, outside of that, can box. He can thump. It will be a super competitive fight as long as his eyes are able to sustain if he is to go into that bout. But I think he's super competitive, because imagine what would have happened in the Earl Spence fight had that eye injury not occurred. I think he would have beat Earl Spence. But this fight, I just don't know what's left in Kell Brooks. But in the way that many fight fans will review it, based on seeing him stop twice, seeing him injured, they expect nothing less than a knockout from Bud Crawford, because that's the way that people seem to want to gauge things, is they base things on comparative analysis and stuff. If this guy did it, you have to do that. And that's not always the case in determining who is the best between the two, potential opponents that they're kind of waiting to see geared up for each other. But Kell Brooks would be a good lesson for Terrence Crawford. And I think it will be a good introduction, being they'll have a common opponent on the record together. It's going to be a common opponent. It's going to get in here and give Crawford a push. And this will be a good way to gauge Crawford, because Errol Spence is being tested as well. That Danny Garcia fight isn't an easy fight. So I think I can't knock it. I just wish it was Sean Porter, but I can't knock it. But I think he should take that if he doesn't take Sean Porter.
I got you. D-Style, what do you think about this fight that's being worked on right now? They said that they're actually negotiating on this now.
Yeah, I think a lot of guys pushing for this fight to stop hedging shit, okay? Like, do you want it or not? Like, don't tell me in one breath, oh, he's got to fight this guy, make him a good deal, and then on the other hand say he's a broken down man and he's got nothing left, and just trying to set up Bud for a lose-lose situation. Okay, I see what's going on, but it's all right. Right? Yeah, that's what it is. Okay, I've been in the game long enough here on YouTube. Okay, But look, man, you never know with these fighters, bro. Hey, I thought Holyfield was done. He lost that decision to Moore. He lost to Bo, right? Said he had problems with his heart or something. You know what I mean? So, and he wasn't supposed to beat Tyson. Guess what? He beat him. You know what I mean? But the fighters are made of some that we can't explain sometimes. If it's, you know what I mean? I'm not saying Cal Brooks, Evander Holyfield now, but if there's something in him that, like, if he wants it, you'll be surprised what a damn prize fighter could do. Be surprised. You'll be like, Manny Pacquiao got knocked out twice before he went on his incredible run. Fighters have come back from worse than what Cal Brooks has been through, right? So never count out any fighter. That's number one. Skills haven't gone anywhere. Okay, he's not that old, right? But I get that the eye is an issue. Don't get me wrong, all right? And just watch. When that fight comes, just like Bud wasn't aiming for that chin of Khan, he was just going to the body to prove a point. He's going to be, look, mark my words, if that fight happens, Bud's not even going to target that damn orbital bone and still going to beat his ass. Okay, mark my words. You write it down. D-Style said it. He's going to do that just so nobody says, you only beat him because of the orbital bone, okay? We'll see, right? So at the end of the day, man, it's a good fight. You know what I mean? If Cal Brook can make the weight, that's number one, right? But why not? I'm not against the fight. So if it happens, let's do it.
Yeah, I'm of the belief that this fight should happen because of the history of the division. It's a good fight for Crawford, having moved up from a lower weight class to this division, and Brook was a champion at this division. Whatever transpired before, I don't want to hear that about his eye sockets and all of that, and who he lost to and all of that, because that's all in the past, and he's still in here trying to fight people. So he must be okay. Doctors are clearing him. So, let's get it on. And then after him, I want to see another name from the division on Bud Crawford's radar to move forward. If that happens to be Porter after this, so be it. I am starting to say, and I'll stick to it until someone proves me wrong, that I don't think he's going to fight Earl Spence, meaning Bud Crawford. I don't think that fight is going to happen. I do believe that the window for it to take place has now passed. The reason being twofold. The car accident, which made it where he was not going to fight after the accident, and now going into this year, recovery period and all of that. And now he's got Danny Garcia on his agenda for his next fight and everything. So the earliest that something could happen with Bud Crawford is probably next year, right? But between now and then, something is going to happen again. One of them will lose or something else will happen, and it'll interfere. This fight was supposed to take place 2 years ago. 2 years ago. And I'm counting this year as a year because this year is just about done. We're in the 9th month of the year. You got 3 more months and the year is over. So it's like this fight, just like the Joshua and Wilder fight, I believe has sailed. This is what happens when you pussyfoot around in professional boxing and don't strike while the iron is hot. There was not a hotter point than when Crawford came up to the division from being an undisputed 140-pound champ than whoever had belts to greet the man. Keith Thurman had a belt. I think he had 2 belts at the time, and then Sean Porter had a belt. So it's like you guys messed around. Earl Spence got a belt. Thurman lost his belt, and Sean Porter got his belt back. Danny Garcia got beat. And you look at here, and now it's like nobody wanted to fight the guy, but everybody talking about who he should fight. Who he should fight. Not none of them should fight him, or he should fight them, but Bud should be fighting somebody else, even somebody who's 40 pounds south of his weight division. This is what's wrong with boxing. This is why boxing needs the super fights. You guys need to shut up and put them up. The Dukes I'm talking about, and get in the ring and fight one another. If you lose, you get a contractual rematch clause. You be in good to go to come back and try to correct things. But all of this messing around, you're going to see it. It's going to happen again. We just saw it also at 154, right? Where Jarrett Hurd lost to Julian J. Rock Williams, okay? We saw Charlo lose that close decision to Tony Harrison. When those two were supposed to be fighting each other for a unified fight, right? And undisputed, and they messed around. He ain't on my level and this and that, and I need to work on another fight with another southpaw or right-handed fighter, whatever. All of that foolishness, and both of the guys lost the fights, okay? And now that's out of there, okay? Then, the heavyweights, Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua. Couple years ago, that fight was at its apex as far as the fire, right? These two guys bantering back and forth through social media and all of that. Whoever was lying, who was not, it don't matter. Fight! There was even talk of a $50 million guarantee or whatever for AJ. And AJ was like, if you give me $50 million, I'll fight. No problem. That's financial security for me. So they said, okay, Wilder's people say they got the $50 million. AJ said, let's roll. But not so fast, because AJ ain't in charge of his own career. Okay, like Wilder is. AJ's people told him, nah, we can't do it that way. We don't negotiate through the media and this and that, blah, blah, blah. Came up with all these different things, but they realized that the $50 million guarantee was for AJ, not them. So they couldn't get their hands in that pot. So they didn't want AJ to make that kind of money, not without them having a hand in that. So they held that up. And guess what happened? AJ ends up losing. Okay? He lost everything, all the belts, everything. Now, he regained them in a rematch, but that knocked that fight down a few pegs because the two champs were undefeated. They could have been undisputed, coming together. Then, turn around a few months later, and Deontay Wilder loses in his rematch with Tyson Fury. So now it's really even doubly not what it could have been because both guys have lost now. Okay? So this is what I'm talking about. When these guys start messing around and start talking crap and talking to us like we don't know what we're looking at, like there's not a history behind them that you can pull the curtain back and look and see where there's quality people facing off with each other, okay? And this is what happens. So we don't care about them as much anymore, right? Because it's like, yeah, they got a little speck on them. And the speck isn't the loss. The speck is the deception that they really want to be someone, okay, of respectability in the sport, but they're not. So guess what? We don't have to respect that. Get the hell out of here with that. Okay? And we're tired. So, yes, I don't think AJ and Wilder's happening. Yes, I don't think Hurd and Charlo is happening. Of course, he's getting ready to fight Rosario, and that is not 100% guarantee for him in that. But it could have been a great fight because they were hot as grits on the stove when it was Hurd and Charlo, undefeated, could have faced one another. And it could have been a multi-fight situation. And they can really make money off of that. The money, had they fought already and one lost to the other, would be 2 times as much as what he's going to make right now fighting Rosario off a rematch with Hurd, had they faced one another already a couple of years ago. So you see how it works? You dummies, huh? You ain't working in your own best interest. You working in other people's interests. But you claim, oh, I'm my own man. I'm making M's. I'm touching M's and all of this. Yeah, you touching M's. Morons. So that's what it is. Anyway, I don't think it's going to happen. Bud Crawford, go ahead and fight Kell Brook. When you're done with that one, if you're victorious, go after Sean Porter or someone else. You're Dennis Ugas. Somebody. Fight somebody. Earl Spence, you're going to keep on doing what you're doing on your side of the street, like you said, and we'll see what happens with that. Because Danny Garcia is not going to be a cakewalk. And you might be surprised if it ends up being a much tougher go-round than you thought. So that's what I have to offer on that, fellas. I want to move forward. And they're talking about for a possible October or November card, maybe November, Danny Jacobs. I'm sorry. Danny Jacobs and Demetrius Andrade may be fighting on a double header, which will lead to the possibility of them facing one another. I'm of the ilk to say, why they got to be on the card double header? Why don't they just get in the ring with each other? See, this is the kind of thing that I'm talking about. Now they go in there and somebody get cut real bad and everything. They don't want to fight that next fight coming up if it's supposed to be between each other because I got a cut and it's got a heal and this and that, right? Or you broke your hand or whatever. Broke your jaw. Got a broken rib. But you could be going in there against each other. Bust your asses in camp. Get in the best shape you can and go in there and try to fight that opponent who is more of a threat than whoever they're going to sign up for you guys to face on this November card. D-Style, what do you got on that? What I'm saying now about Danny Jacobs and Demetrius Andrade.
I mean, just give us the fight. What's with this collision course stuff? Dude?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like the road to Andrade versus, like just give it to us now, dude.
Exactly.
I feel like with boxing, bro, I feel like that kid in the back, on the long trip, and I just keep asking, are we there yet?
Exactly.
No, and boxing keeps telling me, like, no, stop. You know what? Stop asking. Stop. Just shut up. Just watch the movie on the tablet. Are we there yet? Like, just give me the damn fight, dude. Like Chocolatito, Estrada. Hey, I want to see the rematch. They've already fought. Why do we need a double header with them? We already know who they are. Like, they've already fought before. You know what I mean? What if one of them gets upset? Makes no sense, dude. At all. Like, I just don't understand what the point of this is, but hey, that's boxing. You know what I mean? We're going to milk the shit out of it. Oh, and then in this age, too, where everything moves so fast, people don't have really good attention spans anymore. Everything's moving quick. Oh, like you don't need to do stuff like this. You got social media now, But I do got to go, Stormy, man. I want to thank you for having me on, bro. And shout out to Reggie Owens as well, Kurt Sugar, the chat. Hey, jab the like button, guys. Make sure the shit turns blue on all that good stuff, man. I got to run, but have a good one, guys.
Hey, man, thanks for stopping. Appreciate your input and support. And everybody go check out D-Style Boxing on his channel. Got some great stuff coming up there over there. He's got the Puncher's Chance with Ashy Knuckles. He got the Hispanics causing panic. And what else you got going, D-Style?
Chat with Ashy Knuckles, Hispanic causing panic on Wednesdays. And I'm going to have Ari the Rugged Man on Wednesdays. So you guys stay tuned for that, man. I'm out, guys. Peace.
All right. Peace, bro. So, Reggie, what do you have on this with Danny Jacobs and Demetrius Andrade?
I feel the same way. What the fuck they need to build this up for? Get them in the ring. Get them in the ring. And if one don't like the way the result turn out, get back in the ring again.
Thank you.
That's the way I feel about it. Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's what I say, man. It's like, this drives me crazy. Both of them can end up losing, right? And then what? I don't care how soft a touch they put them in with. Something can happen. One of them can break their hand. One of them can suffer a cut or something. You know, go post-fight medical shows you got bleeding on the brain. Now the fight ain't gonna happen. It's like, come on, man. Fight. These guys keep doing this stuff, putting this filler out there, man. It just makes me sick to my stomach, man. And we see it all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And Andrade is the one who really needs this type of fight. Jacobs done been in the fights. He done been in with the Canelos. He done got the Canelo opportunities. He done got the Triple G opportunity. Andrade needs a Jacob fight on his record. He needs to go in there and prove himself. That will open the door for people calling to see him versus a Canelo or a Triple G or a Charlo. Him fighting one of these other cats he's been fighting does nothing for this dude. And this dude has been stripping away at his career. He has done one of the worst jobs I've seen a young, talented fighter do to his career. Man, he's a dude who has been so detrimental to his own career, his own success. He has stood in the way of his own success, and he's doing it again by getting on the card with Danny Jacobs to standing as an undercard fighter when he should be a main event fighter alongside Danny Jacobs on the other side of the ring. I just don't get it, man. I don't understand this dude.
Man, Demetrius Andrade is about as active as a computer floppy disk. And you know the last time they used those, right? So anyway,
yeah.
Shit. Man, come on. But anyway, we also have word that talks are being finalized for Ryan Garcia and Luke Campbell. Now, this is another fight where these guys are kind of like those YouTubers in social media, particularly Ryan Garcia, talking all of his smack and everything. And, you know, these guys, they're looking to get it on. And I don't expect much between these two as far as the fight. Luke Campbell is like a guy who gets hit. He gets hit clean. He has the face only a mother could love of a fighter. He's got a lot of battle scar tissue and everything. And I believe that they feel that Ryan is ready to go in there and fight someone like this with somewhat of a minor name in the sport. And I say minor because Campbell is not at the top. But they're ready to start putting names on his ledger. So this fight is being worked out for possibly late October. What are your thoughts, Reggie, on this?
I think it's going to be a tough fight for Ryan Garcia. He's going to get in here with a southpaw fighter. I don't know if he's been in it with a southpaw fighter like Luke, who also maintains range. He can keep on the outside to where Ryan ain't going to be able to just utilize the speed where he can just step in on a fighter, use the quick hands to touch on him. He's going to have to do more work in this fight. I think Ryan's going to have to set up better off a jab. He's going to have to figure out a way to cut off the ring, close distance as well with this dude who seems to be pretty tall himself, but he's a dude who can work well off his jab. This dude is patient. He looks for his shots. He will find openings. Ryan doesn't have the best of defense. That keeping the chin up in the air thing, that not moving his head. He needs better side-to-side movement. He stands a little bit too tall. He'll be picked by this dude. But I like Ryan Garcia, but I think this is going to be a tough test for Ryan Garcia. I think Luke Campbell's probably gained a lot of experience from that fight against Lomachenko. He had great moments in that fight against Lomachenko. He put some punches on Lomachenko, and I like the way he delivered his left hand. The way he delivers his left hand, he can either deliver it straight or he can hook that mug over, finding the open, coming behind that guard. With Ryan, he can just come straight down the middle. Ryan's going to have to get way better at protecting himself, keeping the guard up, I believe, against this dude. And he's going to have to tuck that chin down. I don't know how strong of a puncher Luke Campbell is, but I think Ryan's gonna have to tuck that chin down, or else that shit is getting tested in this fight. But they playing around too much. I hear too many of these different dates for this fight. First you hear it's signed, then it ain't signed, then he's squabbling with Oscar De La Hoya, then he signs the fight, then they come up with a date here, then the date changes to here. So I don't know, but this is gonna be a tough fight. But Ryan has to take this fight. He has to be in these type of fights so that way he can gauge where he is. He's young enough to take a loss if he loses this fight, but he's also young enough to where he proves himself and begins to build his kind of star quality within the sport. So I like the fight. I think it's going to be tough. I don't count Ryan Garcia out no more. I used to count him out, think he's going to have these tough tests, and every time I doubted him, he knocked the motherfucker out. So I ain't going to count him out, but I think it's going to be a very tough fight for this guy.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. I think that but does Campbell punch hard enough to keep Garcia off of him? And he hasn't really hurt or put himself in a advantageous situation with power. This is why I look at him as possibly, you know, at the end of the day, I think that Garcia's power is going to be the X factor here. Now, granted, southpaw may be a problem, but, you know, I'll watch it. I'm going to tune in. You know what I mean? Because you could see something exciting. You just don't know with guys like on Campbell's side of things. We know about Garcia. But if it were a tougher matchup, you know, then we could say something. But I don't know that Campbell is going to be ready for that. Well, we're a couple of months away from the big fight between Errol Spence Jr. and Danny Garcia. And this is a fight in November 21st. I think that they're saying, Reggie, this is the kind of fight that we should be getting. You know, these men are all in they're right around 30, if not 31. I think 33 might be the oldest for these guys, 32. Thurman is 32. I think Bud is 33, 32, going on 33. They're all around the same age, within 2-3 years of each other. They should be fighting one another. They should have also fought prior to now. Some of them, and some of them have. Sean Porter has fought Danny Garcia and Keith Thurman. What are your thoughts early on about this fight taking place? We don't have to do a breakdown of who you think gonna win, but just, you know, the anticipation, because we're still a ways out from it. What are your thoughts on this one, Reggie?
Hey, this some true warrior shit for Errol Spence to take a fight like this, which is a real dangerous fight. And him coming off this injury, this accident, most people would have took a tune-up. Most people would have took a tune-up, especially in this age of fighting. They would have definitely picked one of these cherry-picked fighters to fluff up their record. This dude going straight at the former champion, a former champion who can crack, who can time shit, who's dangerous. I like Earl's mindset for choosing this one, but it's a dangerous fight, man. If he has anything that has changed within him, he's gonna lose this fight. But that's what really that's what really defines a guy, is that you going in here against a guy who can ultimately go in here and stop you, who's not a guaranteed walkover win, and you gotta love that. I gotta respect that. I respect the hell out of that. That's some real warrior shit. And everything, you know, there would have been no gripes against Errol Spence for taking one of these old easy, rough somebody up type fights. There'd been nothing against him. But he's like, F that. I don't need none of that. I'm going right after someone who's gonna push me, someone who's dangerous. And like I'm repeating, but you gotta respect that.
Yeah. You know, all things aside, according to what we know happened with Earl, they had talked about this fight in the ring after his victory over Sean Porter. And even at that moment, people were a little bit excited to say, oh, he's going to go right into another tough fight or whatever. So now that it is in the cards for them to have a showdown, it's what I crave in the sport today. The top guys fighting each other. I don't care who wins. I just care that the fight takes place, because the men have the option of putting in their contracts to have a rematch, whoever loses. You know what I mean? And when multiple titles are on the line, rematch clauses should be there anyway. And I feel that Sean Porter deserves a rematch with Earl too. So it's like, I want to see these men fighting each other. I don't care who has what belt or whatever. I just want to see the matches, because fights on the highest level, they often do not go the way people anticipate them going. People are surprised by outcomes, decisions, tactical means of fighters approaching their opponents, things like that. There are so many facets of the theater of the unexpected that go into these fights, and that's what make them compelling. And I for one want this. I want it in across the sport in all of the weight classes. I want to see the best taking on the best, and that's just, you know, me being the fight fan that I am. So that's what I have to offer on that. And as we get closer to the fight date, you know, we'll have a chance to break it down for everybody. So that's what I wanted to say. Now, coming up this weekend, Reggie, we've got 2 fight cards. We've got, for Saturday evening, we've got Jamel Herring taking on what's his name? Jonathan Oquendo. And on Sunday, we have Yordenis Ugas taking on Abel Ramos. So for Saturday night's card on ESPN with Herring and Oquendo, what are your thoughts about that going in? And let me ask you this, man. Does Jamel Herring look like he could be related to Kevin Kelly or what, man? Them dudes look like brothers or cousins or something.
Yeah, they do.
They're about the same size and everything, man. That is so weird.
Yo, I was looking.
Huh?
Hey, I was looking at his box rec yesterday, and I thought I was on the wrong fighter.
Yeah, he's a doppelganger for Kevin Kelly, man. It's just that Kevin Kelly is a little older, you know. So what are your thoughts on this fight for tomorrow?
On this one, man, I think this is too easy of a touch for Herring. Way too easy of a touch. And I'm going to watch it, but I don't like it. I don't like these type of matchups. Being that the guy he's going in here with is, I believe, 37. When I looked at it, the dude's like 5'4". And I just don't think he offers anything for Herring. Is Herring a champion still? Yeah, he's a champion. I don't think this dude offers anything. I just think this is going to be one of these bullcrap things that people put on their record as being, oh, I'm a reigning champ and I got these many defenses under my title. But what you have to look deep in is on who you defended and who you defended over. And this one right here is crap. It's nothing. This ought to have been this should have been like a tune-up fight for a fighter coming off the injury. This is what you expect Earl Spence to be in. So I think nothing of it. I think it's going to be kind of a showcase fight, something easy. But hopefully maybe this opponent comes in here and he shocks the world. Hopefully he comes in here and upset Herring for taking on this type of challenge. I pull for the underdog or the guy who was written off when fighters who are of a higher level or higher quality go about choosing people like this to fight, even if it's not the fighter, when their promoters decide to do something like that. But I hope this dude comes in here and he gives it his all. I know Herring more than this dude, but I just can't respect nothing. I don't respect this kind of shit in boxing. I don't respect it on the streets, even when it's people I know, they can't bully people. Ain't none of that bullying shit with around me. I don't condone it. So I don't condone it in boxing, especially when boxing is a real that's the stage where true warriors get in here and battle each other, and they should be battling dudes who are of equal level, not someone like this. So I expect Herring to just go in here and play around with this dude, get him out of there when they call for him to get him up out of there.
This is what I had to offer on that, on this fight. I did a video on it, and I had a chance to go back and look at some film of Oquendo. I've seen a couple of fights of Herring. What's interesting is Herring has height and reach advantages, but he doesn't have a lot of pop on his punch. He's been beating guys with conditioning, okay? And the two losses that he suffered, one of his losses, his opponent really got a hold of him pretty good. Lost a close decision. And with Oquendo, he has a little more pop on his punch than Herring does. So Herring's going to have to box him and keep him at a certain range and distance. Herring almost has to fight like Sean Porter without the roughhousing that Sean does, because he's more of a boxer. But he doesn't have a lot of power. And that's where I'm thinking that this fight can be a little more interesting than one might think, because he doesn't have something to keep guys off of him. And because of his height and his reach, I think that's one of the reasons why Carl Frampton don't want to get down with him, because, he has that, and he has tremendous conditioning. He's a former Marine. His nickname is Semper Fi. But he's a well-conditioned fighter, and he's very busy. So that's one of the things. And if Oquendo is shop worn at 37, and I mean shop worn in the sense of like he's on that downside that, just kind of like fell into a status of being just a good fighter to bring in. I don't know that aspect of him. Some of his highlights and fights that I had a chance to look at were from some younger days of him. So it's like, it's going to be interesting, but he has pop on his punch. And Semper Fi can be hurt. I saw it myself. And the guy that hurt him wasn't even a really big puncher or anything, just solid for the weight. And I think he has like average, if not slightly below average, punching power at the weight. So that's going to be very interesting. And that's how I see that one. Now, coming up on Sunday evening, PBC has your Dennis Ugas taking on Abel Ramos. I had a chance to review some fights of Ramos earlier this evening because I wanted to try to get that work in, get my homework in. And I realized that that guy, Ivan Baranchik, had a good fight with him where they both knocked each other down. Ramos went down a couple of times. But it was an exciting fight. But I noticed that he pushes his punches, particularly his jab, Ramos does. And he's easy to hit. So this might be a real showcase for your Dennis Ugas if he's in shape to come in and do what he has to do. I see this as being a showcase for him to help keep him relevant. Maybe they want to have him as a future opponent, maybe a rematch with Porter, someone down the line for Bud, or a comebacking Thurman or something. That's what they're trying to do. So I want to know if you know anything about Ramos, Reggie, but I know you know who Ugas is. What are your thoughts on this potential matchup for Sunday night?
Yeah, I don't remember seeing Ramos, but I remember seeing Burchek, and I seen he went to a majority decision or something against Burchek, because we was looking over his record the other day, and I was thinking maybe he's one of these showcase fighters for this dude to just walk through. And when I seen he's been in the ring with some high quality opponents. And I think, matter of fact, he fought Jamel Herring. I believe he had a draw against Herring or something, and he has a lot of knockouts on the record. So I'm like, the dude has power. Like you said, he sat down Ivan Baranchyk. So I don't know, man. Maybe he can come in here and maybe not shock Ugas as far as beating him, but can he hurt Ugas in his fight? Can he drop Ugas? Can he make it exciting, wake Ugas up to where Ugas just can't go in here and fall asleep on this dude? So I'm just hoping like underdog fighters like this come into fights, they show up, they press the action, and they put these better known fighters in positions they weren't expecting to be in. That's what I want to see. But I think Ugas going to have this one. But I want to see you guys in here with bigger names, man. Get some of these other guys that are in here. Boxing is not just about 2 or 3 fighters. There are a lot of other nice name fighters who are out here who can really get in here and scrap. And I want to see you guys start to throw his name in the car with them, or whoever's working on getting him his fights start to get you guys his fights. But that's all I got on that.
Yeah, I look forward to it, man, and being able to check these fights out for the weekend. Like I said, once boxing got back going, the Stormy sit up and try to do his homework and find out who people are and watch, the guys I'm familiar with and break these things down and have it ready to go. So when we do these chop sessions, we can talk about it. And I don't know if you noticed, but I've been back to my videos now again too. So it's like you guys out there listening to the show and everything know that Stormybman has started posting up fight videos again, pre-fight videos, commentary, editorials and stuff like that, getting it all ready to talk about the sport. And I'm trying to inundate myself with information so we'll have plenty to bestow upon our listeners here. So Reggie, go ahead and give us some final thoughts and words for the show. And it's been a great show with you and the other brothers that were on with us tonight, D-Style Boxing and Kurt Sugar, man. I enjoyed our conversation tonight. We are really cooking on the Friday night chop session, man.
Yes, indeed, man. Thank you guys for coming out. Salute to the brothers who was on, the OG, the living boxing encyclopedia, Curtis Anderson's, my brother D-Style. And thank you, OG, for having me on, man. Like I said, it's a great conversation, man. I enjoyed the hell out of it. The topics were on point. I'm glad that we covered those topics and got to speak on that. But you guys can catch me on Boxing Conversations with Reggie Owens, and the same is my backup channel, just with number 2. But that's all I got, man. Great conversation, man.
Yes, sir. And there was also something when we wrap things up, I want to holler at you a minute, Reggie. So, just bear with me when we close things out. But yeah, man, this, the wonderful thing about what we do here on the Friday night chop session is we talk about boxing. And I've coined my own little term now, under the hood, because there are many parts that run an engine under the hood, right? So we go through those details now, and I really like that aspect of getting to the meat of the subject and not just talking about the chassis, because the chassis looks nice and pretty. You paint it and shine it and wax it and all of that. But if ain't nothing happening under the hood, it's just sitting in the driveway looking nice, and birds gonna crap all over your paint job. So I love the fact that we can talk under the hood of boxing, man. So that's a great thing right there. What else can I say? But I want everybody to stay with us, stay tuned in, because we are bringing it, and we talk about the Friday night chop session. There's so much going on in the sport that we can't cover everything in one episode, but we do our best to try to present, the best of programming to you guys. So if you haven't had a chance to subscribe to the channel, please subscribe and hit the like button on your way out, and know that we are here to bring it each and every week, when we do our thing here on the Friday Night Chop Session. So this is all we got for you this evening. This is Stormybman. Want to say salute to the chat out there. Thank you guys. Hit that like button on your way out, man, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend.